Last year's release of Madden NFL 23 was somehow more of a disaster than usual, with game-breaking glitches and bugs that were so bad, they led to public apologies from EA, discounts given to affected users, and a ton of bad press. This year, EA has focused their marketing strategy on winning you back. They have referred to Madden 24 as a make-or-break game for the company, and they have a now-or-never mentality. You thought Madden 23 was trash? Well hey, EA thinks that's justified. Last year was a fluke, and this is Madden's bounce back year. I mean, look at this. Madden is getting a massive makeover, and franchise mode is getting some big changes. This all sounds awesome. Unfortunately, after playing the 10-hour trial through Xbox Game Pass, Madden NFL 24, in my opinion, is still a really bad game, just like Madden NFL 23, and honestly, any Madden running on the Frostbite engine. Despite the extremely bad press, Madden NFL 23 wasn't really any worse than usual. Madden games have all been so bad for so long that every year the latest Madden seems to be in the worst of all time conversation. This wasn't a one-year fluke where EA made an oopsie with 23 and is now primed to return to form. Madden games haven't even approached the good territory since Madden 12, and you'd have to go back to the PS2 era to find the last great Madden. Since EA and the NFL signed an exclusive rights agreement in 2005, only EA has been legally allowed to create a simulation-style NFL game since, and Madden's overall drop in quality heavily correlates with EA's lack of competition. When NFL 2K was a thing, Madden was great. Remember how fun Madden 04 and 05 were? But when Madden is the only NFL game on the market, like its current position today, it doesn't need to be any good to earn your purchase. It just needs to exist. It will sell regardless thanks to that exclusive NFL license. Almost nothing about Madden NFL 24 is new or even improved. The game is a shallow, watered-down, soulless cash grab. It shows zero respect or appreciation for the history of the sport it exclusively represents. It is missing over 60 features found in previous Madden titles. It is a glitchy, bug-filled mess, and it does a worse job at simulating NFL football than video games that are now over a decade old. It's a lifeless, bare minimum product that barely qualifies as entertainment. Did I mention that it runs poorly and lacks quality control? Madden NFL 24 is not good. Here's my review. I found it strange that Josh Allen would choose to grace Madden's cover. In 2019, during Madden NFL 20's release, after being rated a 74, Allen was quoted as saying, "I don't care if it's a knock on Madden or whatever, but I'm going to continue to play ESPN NFL 2K5 on my Xbox because it has a better physics engine and it's a better game overall." Well, I guess EA paid Josh Allen a good amount of money then. A lot of the pre-release press in EA's own marketing suggests that franchise mode got the most attention this year. So what's new in franchise this year? The mode EA has neglected for over a decade and is now arguably the worst franchise mode in all of sports games. Not the menus, those are exactly the same. Relocation was the main update to the mode, the flagship big change coming to franchise mode this year. Now, instead of waiting until after week 4 of the NFL season to relocate your team, you can do it anytime. If you want to relocate week 1, you can, and your team will immediately be relocated. There are also new cities you can relocate to, but no new team designs. So while you can now choose to relocate to Tokyo or Paris, for example, you're still limited to the same old teams, such as the Black Knights or the Bisons or the Condors. You get one uniform option, nothing to pick, all with the exact same number font, and the same generic stadium designs as before to pick from. So really the only difference to relocation is that it's instantaneous and that you don't get to pick your jersey anymore. Other than that, it's the exact same teams, logos, colors, etc., just with new cities that are nothing but a cosmetic label. Why not just give us create a team? Why go through the effort to slightly tweak relocation when we could have a creation suite of our own where we could pick our own jersey colors, helmet colors, pants colors, logos, design our own stadiums, etc. You know, like in every other major sports game, or even back in older Madden titles. or even an expansion draft for new teams like you'd see in NBA 2K, or again, older Madden titles like Madden 02. The other major new addition was the return of training camp through minigames, an old staple of the PlayStation 2 era Madden games that I'm very fond of. Unfortunately, these minigames are poorly implemented into the game. On Madden NFL 07 for the PS2, for example, training camp drills would allow you to specifically upgrade your players, and after completing the minigame, you could risk all of your points by trying it again at a higher difficulty, usually with more defenders on the field. In Madden 24's implementation of this old game mode, however, training camp drills can only be completed with one player, and that player simply gets XP. You can't, for example, try rushing attack again with an added defender for more of a challenge and more XP. You just play it once against two defenders, easily score on every touch, and that's it. You're done. Also, look how abruptly it ends. This lack of polish is found all throughout the game. I even had a glitch on my end where after completing the training camp drills with two of my players, neither of them got the XP they supposedly earned, so it was completely pointless. It's annoying to me how the tagline for rushing attack says, "Wipe away those tears of nostalgia." EA, it is your fault this minigame is nostalgic at all. It, along with the 60 plus other features that used to be in Madden games and no longer are, didn't need to be removed. You know why no one calls the depth chart nostalgic? Because it was never removed from the game. I hate marketing a feature as nostalgic when the very reason it's absent is because the company making the game is lazy. I also find it strange that instead of fleshing out this mode that is essentially just copied from the PS2, EA instead brought it back in a worse, more basic form. The new minigames are used all throughout the game too, from a dedicated main menu option to superstar mode drills to franchise training camp and even weekly strategy. By adding this handful of minigames, EA now has filler content to stuff in all of their modes to make the game appear to have more depth than it really does. But instead, you're just going to be skipping these minigames after a few attempts because they're too easy, they're too static, and they're too underdeveloped. Speaking of the weekly strategy and franchise mode, it'll show you if your players have a minigame available to play to give them XP. Yet when I clicked on John Michael Schmitz here, it says no drill available. So then why does it say drill available here? If centers can't do drills, why have them pop up? Does anyone working on this game know what they are doing? Oversights like this are everywhere. The only other important additions are the extra trading slots. Now Madden has caught up to every other sports game on the market, and you can now trade 6 assets at once. Now you can actually get a proper haul for trading a superstar. This is a good thing. Minor new features include the ability to turn off auto depth chart sorting, so the game doesn't reset your depth chart after every game like it did in Madden 23. Wow, such innovation. Besides some small tweaks to commissioner tools and things like improved regression and improved draft prospect generation, that's really all that changed. Restructuring contracts is supposedly new, but despite having players eligible for contract restructuring, I never had an option to actually restructure their contracts. Scouting is the same as last year. Instead of the old regular Madden scouting where you just use points to see if a player is good or not, you now hire scouts and delegate them to areas, and put your faith in the CPU to scout for you. I find it to be a worse system, since I can't specifically choose which players to scout myself. It's somehow too complex and tedious, while also having less depth to it. Compare it to scouting on the PS2 Maddens, where you could play the Senior Bowl and perform workouts with rookies that took place at the scouting combine, and doing well in these drills would give you information about the player. Or even ESPN NFL 2K5, where you could view a prospect's college stats and GPA, and then delegate time to specific prospects of your choosing to find out their skills and attributes. I appreciate that EA is at least trying in recent years to improve scouting from the basic button mashing of before, but this version is just worse and I don't like it. Simulated quarterback rushing stats are also still not accurate. After simulating half a season, Lamar Jackson was the top rushing QB with 51 rushes for 271 yards. For reference, that puts him on pace for 101 rushing attempts throughout the entire season, and Lamar has never rushed for less than 112 attempts in a season, and that was last year when he played in only 12 games. It's an improvement from mobile quarterbacks not rushing at all like in previous Maddens, but it's still far from accurate. You still can't sign free agents to a custom midseason deal, it's still a fixed one-year deal. You can't backload or front-load a contract, they are always backloaded. In ESPN NFL 2K5, you could front-load a contract. Menu navigation this year is super slow and laggy, everything takes multiple button presses, and it's a tedious process overall to simply navigate around the mode, or really any part of Madden 24. Last year in Madden NFL 23, franchise mode would crash and players would lose their entire save files and lose years of draft picks and progression. While that hasn't happened to me in my 10-hour trial, the mode doesn't exactly feel stable, and I've experienced and seen numerous glitches still present, so it wouldn't shock me to see a similar issue happen this year. On top of all of that, the mode is still so far behind where it should be. It's missing so many features from older Madden titles, and even if EA added back every old franchise mode feature, the mode would still be missing things Madden has never had, such as compensatory picks, the waiver wire, the supplemental draft, 3-team trades, proper edge positioning, long snappers actually long snapping rather than being 30 overall tight ends, historic draft classes, different eras like an NBA 2K, and more. It's easier to point out what isn't in franchise mode rather than what is. EA has improved the mode slightly over the years by adding back some of the removed features, like the team column and stats, league history, and offensive coordinators, so I'll give them credit where it's due, but these additions are only closing the gap between Madden 24 and Madden 07. These baby steps are leading to what? A game as deep as a PS2 game? Is that worth praising? I feel like in 2023, our expectations for sports games should be so much higher. PS2 era sports games shouldn't even be relevant today, but games like Madden 24 keep them relevant. Face of the franchise is now called Superstar Mode, the iconic name of Madden's older career modes from the glory days. Now EA is hoping your nostalgia for good Madden games will get you to buy this one because hey look, Superstar Mode is back! Unfortunately, unlike the Superstar Mode of old where you could play as any position, you can only play as a quarterback, running back, receiver, linebacker, or cornerback. You can't be a safety, a tight end, a fullback, a guard, a tackle, a defensive lineman, or even a punter, like you could in the old Superstar modes. So already, the mode is failing to live up to its name. Character customization is solid, but less so than usual. There are less options for customizing your character's face this year. You'd think they slimmed it down a bit, maybe to more easily be able to port it into other game modes. So in franchise, for example, you could use this face creation tool to more accurately create players for draft classes. But no, it only exists within Superstar mode. In franchise mode, you have to deal with the same generic faces as always. Upon creating your Superstar, you get to choose between the League or Showdown. The Yard is now gone, replaced with Showdown, which is a better version of what the Yard was trying to be. It's an online game of 3v3 football played on a 50-yard field. It says first to 21, which sounds fine in theory, yet after scoring 24 points, with my opponent down 2 scores, it gave them the ball back just for them to score a touchdown and a 3-point conversion, and then the game ended with me winning by 1 point. Why didn't it just end after I passed 21, considering my opponent was mathematically eliminated? These are some rookie developer mistakes coming from a billion-dollar company. Showdown seems like it would be a fun mode to play with friends, but it's so slow to get into and through a game with Madden's laggy menus. The NFL side of the career mode starts with a cutscene that is at least skippable this year, with some NFL personalities debating on if Cap, who is you, will be a bust or not. Then your character shows up for a cringy cutscene that looks super ugly. Again, luckily you can skip these. The Combine is actually solid. Bench press is just like it was in older Maddens like Madden 11 in Superstar mode, just a little easier. The 40-yard dash minigame is there too, as well as the broad jump, 20-yard shuttle, and miscellaneous extra drills. I actually enjoyed doing these little minigames. After each minigame, you get to see how you stack up to the rest of the draft class, and you get a draft projection. This is much better than the older Face of the Franchise Combine, and it's almost exactly like the PS3 era Madden Superstar mode. Next, you do an interview that asks some basic NFL trivia, then you go to the draft. For some reason though, the cutscene at the draft isn't skippable, unlike the others. So after answering a question from Deion Sanders, you can finally skip the next cutscene. Alright, let's see where I get drafted. And it just goes back to the main menu. So skipping that cutscene skips the entire draft. This game is so poorly made and so inconsistent to navigate through. Next, you sign a contract, which now lets me know the Cardinals drafted me, and despite being one of the worst testing running backs at the Combine, I'm drafted in the early second round. Unlike old Superstar modes, there's no barber shop or tattoo parlor or movie roles to act in. It's just playing those same training camp minigames they added this year to franchise, and some bonus workouts which are just your regular Madden training drills. You can sometimes choose to do something that appears cool, like a brand focus, where you can do something like post a dance to TikTok, but it's just text-based XP gaining essentially. There's no visual for it or any choice to make. Same goes for your free time. Choosing an option, such as challenging a teammate to a 40-yard sprint, just gives you a stat increase. There's no visual or minigame or decision for it. This mode is simply franchise mode with less features and a player-locked camera and a couple cutscenes and minigames early on. That's it. It's essentially a worse version of the older Superstar modes. It takes the basics, improves upon nothing, and adds nothing new. There's no more college football either, which was at least in recent Madden career modes. Overall, what's the point? It's better than last year's Face of the Franchise simply because it's not as annoying, but it's as bare bones as ever. Maybe that's what EA wanted, just to play it safe, but the end result is laughably generic, laughably boring, and in a make or break year, it doesn't do EA any favors. Gameplay is probably the best part of Madden 24 because it's the only part of the game that actually runs decently. Compared to Madden 23, gameplay is better, yes, but not by much. There's nothing all that new happening on the field, and if you hated Madden 23's gameplay, you are still going to hate the gameplay in Madden 24. Blocking is hit or miss as always. There are some new tackle animations that look nice, but there are also some awkward ones that take you out of the experience. Madden 24 is full of those awkward moments where after a tackle, a player gets up by morphing inside of another, or players get stuck together, or things like this happen. It's a very unpolished and rough experience that feels like an early beta of a mobile game, yet this is year 7 of Madden running on EA's Frostbite engine. But for a Madden game on the PlayStation 4 generation and up, this is probably the best gameplay has been in a Madden game, and for once I can actually have some fun with it. Big plays favor the offense, receivers actually catch one-on-one balls when in position, interceptions are less frequent, running the ball feels good, and I find myself overall less annoyed than usual. However, it's tough to notice these positives when the experience is so unpolished all around. The numerous bugs, slow and sluggish menu navigation, the lifeless presentation, and the awkward overall sloppiness of the visual experience drags it down. And despite gameplay feeling good for a Madden title, if you really start breaking down what's happening on the field, it'll end up looking like nonsense because that's what it really is. This is not a simulation football game, despite EA having the exclusive simulation NFL rights. But if you don't look too closely, it can be fun to score with your favorite team or play with friends. Despite some new tackle animations, the tackling physics just don't hold a candle to what Backbreaker was doing in 2010. Player animations are still less accurate and more awkward looking than in All Pro Football 2K8. The game's AI is still really bad. If EA wants to put out a good on-field product, this game needs to be rebuilt from scratch. Most of the gameplay issues and bugs have been present since the move to Frostbite. Some have been present longer. The entire gameplay experience can be summed up as a slightly tweaked and improved, yet still sloppy and unpolished version of Madden 23. While it'll be more fun than last year, it's still not very good, and the improvements don't feel any more significant than a Madden 23 patch. Ultimate Team is a game mode that I do not recommend. In a $70 video game, you shouldn't need to spend any more money to be competitive online. Ultimate Team requires you to either grind for a good number of hours or pay real money for packs if you want a chance at fielding a competitive team. I disagree with the entire premise of the game mode, and its inclusion in the early 2010s is what has helped speed up Madden's decline. The mode is a moneymaker for EA that locks NFL history behind a paywall. You want to play with the 2007 New England Patriots in the only NFL game? Too bad. But you can buy a pack for a chance at getting a 2007 Patriots Randy Moss, though. At least this year you can jump right into MUT Draft and play a friend instantly, however. In Madden 23, you had to grind multiple levels and do daily challenges just to level up enough to unlock MUT Draft just to play a friend. So I'm glad it's automatically accessible this year. It's the only part of Ultimate Team worth touching in my opinion. Superstar KO still exists under Play Now, but it's the same as always, only with half of the teams removed. There are only 4 options now, so no more Lil Yachty or DJ Khaled. Also, I'm not sure if this was a glitch or by design, but my opponent's jerseys were just plain white and blank. I'm going to assume it's a glitch. Mini games are also available to play just for fun from the main menu. You pick a team, you choose a mini game, you play it, you go for a high score. It's pretty half-baked, but at least it's here in some capacity if you're bored. The only other new addition to this game is the Big Head mode in practice. Big Head mode, baby! It's only in practice, it's not in franchise or even in Play Now. And if you look at the sidelines, some players don't even have big heads, but the on-field gameplay feels really fun with big heads. I don't know why, I just like it. It's fun. I like Big Head mode even though it's only in practice. It's the best part of this game. It further proves to me that EA is better suited for making arcade-style NFL games, however, while another company should be making the simulation-style ones. Presentation is really bad in Madden NFL 24, and it might be the most infuriating part of these recent Madden games for me personally. From the very start, you're faced with Josh Allen looking at you like this. I recently made a video on Madden 11, and I was really surprised at how much better the presentation was in that game than it has been in recent Madden titles. That hasn't changed with Madden 24. In 2K5, 2K's last NFL game, not only was there a pregame show with Chris Berman, ESPN Music and ESPN broadcast packages, and a halftime and postgame show with highlights, analysis, and interviews, but there was also a weekly SportsCenter wrap-up show in franchise mode that would show you stats, injuries, moves, and even highlights from around the league, even from games you didn't play. This was in 2004. An NFL game from 2004 should not be relevant in 2023. Yet 2K5 is because EA Sports has failed to surpass it in numerous areas despite trying for 19 years now. In Madden NFL 24, this is the pregame show. You hear some royalty-free hi-hat beat while your players awkwardly stand there. Every game starts this exact same way too. The halftime show is just this. Compare that to 2K5's. There is essentially no postgame show. The closest thing to that weekly wrap-up show is the news tab in franchise. Crazy stuff. Even Madden 11 had the extra point show. EA showed that they can make a decent halftime and postgame sequence with NBA Live 19. It's clear that EA is just half-assing it with Madden, simply coasting by on John Madden's legacy and the NFL brand recognition, because they clearly have the ability to make this game better, they just choose not to. The crowd is so quiet, so lifeless, and so underwhelming. You never hear it change. If you score a touchdown, yeah, they get a little bit louder, but they rarely, if ever, will chant defense or rock the house like you'd expect in crucial moments. And they never go silent either like you'd expect during tense moments as the home team. There's nothing dynamic about the crowd. It's the same level of complexity you'd find on the earliest Maddens for the Sega Genesis. It's a constant, static crowd noise that occasionally gets louder when a team scores, that's it. Even the visuals don't look authentic. Sure, the game runs in a high resolution and has a lot of shiny detail, but the textures, they're so flat and dull. Everything looks fake and plastic rather than realistic. Madden 11 looks more authentic. See the grass, the overall lighting, the stadium, the players. Now look at Madden 24 again. It's just such a dull, boring game to look at. The sidelines lack detail, the stadiums lack detail, the crowd lacks detail. The Patriots Stadium doesn't even look like this anymore, it looks like this. Attention to detail is missing all throughout this game. There's no NFL Films music, there's nothing epic or exciting about this game. You know how before a game on Fox, you hear the da-da-da-da-da-da, and it gets you all hyped? You know, same thing for Sunday Night Football on NBC and CBS football. Yet on Madden, you get this generic trap beat. Listen to this.
Are you ready for some football? It's the Miami Dolphins and the Seattle Seahawks, and it's all up next on EA Sports.
Why can't EA either license the branding, the music, and the broadcast packages of an existing brand like ESPN or NBC? Or why don't they create their own unique broadcast packages with alternating scoreboards, unique original music, and new announcers? NBA 2K has multiple announcer teams. MLB The Show uses multiple scoreboards and different broadcast presentations. ESPN NFL 2K5 used ESPN presentation, as did EA's old college football games. So really, what's the deal? Why is this game so dull? Even the loading screens suck. Instead of seeing maybe some stats and some classic NFL players, you just get Ultimate Team advertisements in a $70 game. Referees are back on the field at least, but why were they even gone? There are some new pre-snap camera angles, but it's basically the same thing as what you'd see in the old PS2 Maddens before the snap. And while it helps the game feel a bit less repetitive visually, it's such a minor tweak to a presentation system that needs a major overhaul. The scoreboard itself is smaller and uglier than usual. You can hardly make out the quarter and remaining time, and it looks nothing like a scoreboard or scorebug you would see on a real NFL broadcast. It looks very generic and helps hide Madden's greatest strength, its NFL licensing. The transition animation before replays is awkward and choppy, and the announcers are the exact same ones as always. Yes, Charles Davis and Brandon Gaudin are back for the 8th year in a row. Yes, the 8th year in a row, and they are still using the same lines you can trace back to Madden 17. If I hear eluding the pressure right one more time, I will die. I am so sick of hearing these voices, please make them stop. Madden 23 made linemen look fat and pear-shaped, so naturally EA highlighted that Madden 24 would make them look normal again, as if that's an improvement worth focusing on. Fixing an issue created the year before seems to be all Madden ever does. Where is the actual progress? The soundtrack is just your average Gen Z playlist. Some more variety would be really nice. You know, why not throw in some older songs, some old school hip hop, you know, some newer genres, maybe some NFL Films music, you know, some instrumentals to get you hyped. The overall experience lacks any personality, any excitement, or even newness. You play with the same teams as last year in the same stadiums with the same graphics, the same lighting, the same announcers, the same camera angles, the same everything. The last few years of Madden all just kind of blend together, don't they? There's nothing unique that stands out about the game year to year. It's crazy how the only licensed NFL game can feel so generic and unofficial at the same time. Playing this game reminds me of playing Minesweeper, and not because it's fun, no, Minesweeper is a much more fun game than Madden 24, but instead because this game gives you that same feeling of dread. It's so unstable that it feels like it could crash or do something insane at about any moment, so when things are running smooth, you get suspicious, as you know it's only a matter of time before you hit a mine. As I mentioned earlier, the menus are really laggy and slow, more than usual, and most of the game's animations and transitions appear jarring. It's insanely buggy, and it seems to get buggier every year, likely because of the mess of legacy code the developers have been haphazardly adding to every year. Many players have already experienced some insane glitches, like the ones you're seeing here, and this game just came out a few days ago. Last year, EA said their #1 priority with Madden 23 was polish, and it was arguably the least polished Madden of all time. Things have not improved much, if at all, in this make or break year for the game. With how sluggish and slow this game feels, it might be even worse. Madden NFL 24 is a really rough game. It's really not that different from last year's title at all. Besides 3 new trade slots in franchise mode, a worse version of the PS2 minigames, and some tiny tweaks across the board, this game feels more like a roster update than usual, and Madden cannot afford to take this route when their core game needs so much work. The gameplay is cheesy fun at best and sloppy nonsense at its worst. The menus and the overall navigation throughout the game are the slowest of any modern game I've played. Franchise mode is still incredibly shallow and missing numerous necessary features. There is still no way to create your own team or stadium. There are no historic teams or stadiums. Superstar mode is a waste of time, and the game's overall presentation feels more generic than a high school broadcast. With the same announcers and dull presentation as always, an insane number of bugs, and a lack of attention to detail all around, it's difficult to get immersed into this game. When games like Madden 07 on the PlayStation 2 have more features and depth than Madden 24, and also run smoother with more polished gameplay and faster menus, that's not a good sign. When games like ESPN NFL 2K5 have better presentation and show more respect to the history of the sport it represents, that's not a good sign. When the gameplay of all Pro Football 2K8 looks smoother and more refined than in Madden 24, that's not a good sign. When the physics of Backbreaker, a game from 2010, look better than the physics of Madden 24, that's not a good sign. When the lighting and overall presentation of Madden 11 looks better than that in Madden 24, that's really not a good sign. I fail to see EA's vision for this series. It's not actually progressing or heading in any sort of direction. It's in an endless cycle of removing depth and causing issues, and then slowly bringing the depth back, which causes the game to get mislabeled as a step in the right direction, which EA can then use for marketing. Playing the game feels like playing Jenga, when the blocks are about to fall at any moment, as this game is built on layers and layers of outdated legacy code stemming back as far as Madden 13 or even farther, and the current developers didn't even create this code, and they likely don't even know how to properly work around it. Despite the fact that Madden is the only simulation NFL game, you do have some alternatives. Legend Bowl, a game I called the best indie football game, is now available for consoles, so you can play it on your Nintendo Switch or your PS5 or your Xbox Series X if you want. If you don't mind the 2D art style, it does have some of the best simulation football gameplay you can find. NFL Pro Era is a fully licensed VR NFL game that EA is not involved with. Wildcard Football is a new NFL PA licensed arcade football game coming out, as is ESG Football 24, which is a game LaShawn McCoy helped create. Sunday Rivals is another great indie game that already exists, although it's only available for PC, and Axis Football looks to actually be making some solid strides. The new Maximum Football game also shows promise, if it ever comes out. Retro Bowl is an awesome little mobile game, and older games like NFL 2K5 are still getting roster updates and can be played in 4K with emulation. None of these are perfect replacements, but they can help you scratch that itch if you decide not to buy Madden 24. EA and the NFL's exclusive license ends in 2026, but the NFL does have an option year in 2025. If EA calling Madden 24 make or break wasn't just for marketing, then maybe the bad press it will inevitably receive over the coming months could cause the NFL to opt out early, opening up their license to other companies. That's probably not going to happen though, it's just wishful thinking. Instead, we'll probably get another decade of buggy Madden games that still aren't as deep or as polished as a PS2 game. We'll still be talking about NFL 2K5, all for IGN to call each Madden game a step in the right direction. If the NFL actually cared about their brand in putting out a respectable product, they would stop working with Electronic Arts. The only game Madden 24 looks good next to is Madden 23. And even then, you'd have to squint to notice the difference. I'll give Madden 24 a 3 out of 10. You can have fun with it, but it's a pretty bad video game. And over the last 2 decades, EA has failed to justify why it deserves the exclusive simulation NFL license. Thanks for watching.